Mountains have always captivated our imagination, standing as silent sentinels over the passage of time. But beyond their majestic beauty lies something far more intriguing. Secrets buried in ice, mysteries carved into stone, and enigmas that have puzzled scientists and explorers for centuries. Today, we're diving into the hidden world of mountain mysteries, exploring the secrets concealed within Earth's highest peaks. The mountains we climb are not just geological formations, they're keepers of history, guardians of ancient knowledge, and sometimes harbingers of the unexplained. From the snow-capped Himalayas to the rugged Andes, these natural monuments have witnessed humanity's greatest triumphs and most perplexing disappearances. Let's begin our journey with perhaps the most infamous mountain mystery of the modern era, the Dyatlov Pass incident. In February 1959, 9 experienced Russian hikers died under circumstances so bizarre that they continue to baffle investigators to this day. The group was trekking through the northern Ural Mountains when something caused them to tear their way out of their tent in the middle of the night, fleeing into sub-zero temperatures without proper clothing. Their bodies were found scattered across the mountainside, some with inexplicable internal injuries, but no external trauma. Others showed signs of radiation exposure. For decades, theories ranged from avalanches to secret Soviet weapons tests, from infrasound-induced panic to UFO encounters. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case, eventually concluding that an avalanche was the most likely culprit. But this explanation fails to address many of the case's strangest elements. Why did the hikers cut their way out of the tent rather than using the entrance? Why did some victims have crushed ribs with no external bruising? And why did witnesses report strange orange lights in the sky that night? The mountains kept their silence, and the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of mountaineering's most enduring mysteries. A reminder that even in the modern age, nature's highest realms can swallow our certainties whole. Moving from Russia to the Himalayas, we encounter another perplexing phenomenon, the mystery of Skeleton Lake. High in the Indian Himalayas at over 16,000 feet lies Rupkund, a small glacial lake that remains frozen for most of the year. But when the ice melts, it reveals a macabre sight. Hundreds of human skeletons scattered around its shores and submerged in its waters. These remains were first discovered by a forest ranger in 1942, but scientific analysis has only deepened the mystery. Initially thought to be Japanese soldiers or victims of an epidemic, carbon dating revealed something far stranger. The majority of the skeletons date to around 800 CE, but astonishingly, DNA analysis conducted in 2019 found that these individuals came from 3 distinct genetic groups. One group was of South Asian ancestry, as might be expected, but others were Mediterranean, with genetic profiles similar to present-day Greeks and Cretans. Even more bizarrely, some skeletons dated to around 1800, 1,000 years after the main group. What were Mediterranean travelers doing at this remote, inhospitable lake? And what killed them? The most compelling theory comes from examining the skulls, which show injuries consistent with being struck from above, possibly by hailstones. Local folklore speaks of a goddess who rained death upon trespassers with balls of ice as hard as iron. Perhaps this isn't just mythology, but a cultural memory of a catastrophic hailstorm that caught these travelers in the open, with nowhere to seek shelter in the barren alpine landscape. The mountains, it seems, occasionally exact a terrible price from those who venture into their domain. From natural disasters to human engineering, our next mystery takes us to the mountains of Bosnia, where controversy has raged since 2005. That's when businessman Samir Osmanagic claimed that a cluster of hills near the town of Visoko weren't natural formations at all, but rather the world's largest and oldest pyramids, built by an ancient civilization some 12,000 years ago. Mainstream archaeologists dismissed these claims as pseudoscience, pointing out that the hills conform to natural geological processes. But Osmanagic's excavations have uncovered some genuinely puzzling features, including a network of underground tunnels and chambers that appear to be artificial. Even more intriguing are measurements showing that the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun perfectly aligns with true north and emits a focused beam of electromagnetic energy from its peak. Could these mountains conceal evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization that predates all known ancient cultures? Or is this simply a case of pareidolia, our human tendency to see patterns where none exist? The scientific community remains skeptical, but the Bosnian pyramid controversy reminds us that mountains can blur the line between natural wonder and human achievement. Speaking of human achievement, few mountain mysteries are as visually striking as China's Hanging Coffins. Throughout the mountainous regions of southwestern China, ancient coffins can be found suspended from sheer cliff faces, sometimes hundreds of feet above the ground. The Bo people, who practiced this burial method from around 1000 BCE until the Tang dynasty, somehow managed to place these wooden caskets in seemingly inaccessible locations without modern climbing equipment. The question that has puzzled archaeologists isn't just how they accomplished this engineering feat, but why. Traditional explanations suggest spiritual motivations, placing the dead closer to heaven, or protecting them from animals and floods. But recent discoveries of tools and temporary shelters near some coffin sites suggest another possibility. During times of war, the Bo people may have retreated to these vertical havens, bringing their ancestors with them to protect both the living and the dead from invaders. What makes this practice even more remarkable is that it occurred independently in multiple mountain regions across Asia and even the Philippines. Something about mountains seems to inspire similar solutions to the universal human problem of honoring the dead while navigating harsh terrain. From ancient burial practices to modern climate revelations, our next mystery is unfolding in real time as global warming transforms high-altitude environments. As glaciers retreat across the world's mountain ranges, they're revealing artifacts that have been preserved in ice for centuries or even millennia, creating what archaeologists call a golden age of glacial archaeology. In Norway's mountains, melting ice has exposed Viking trade routes, complete with well-preserved wooden objects, clothing, and even the remains of horses used to traverse these high passes. In the Alps, the famous Ötzi the Iceman emerged from a melting glacier in 1991, providing unprecedented insights into Copper Age life. And in the Andes, retreating ice has revealed Incan sacrificial sites with mummified remains so well preserved that researchers can analyze the food these individuals ate in their final days. These discoveries are bittersweet. They provide invaluable historical information, but come at the cost of environmental degradation. They also remind us that mountains have always been places of human activity, not just obstacles to be avoided. The peaks we consider remote and inhospitable today were highways of commerce, cultural exchange, and spiritual significance to our ancestors. Perhaps the most enduring mountain mysteries are those that blend the natural with the supernatural. Mount Shasta in California stands as a perfect example, a dormant volcano that has accumulated more legends, sightings, and inexplicable phenomena than perhaps any other mountain in North America. Native American tribes considered Shasta sacred long before European settlement. The Wintu people believed it was inhabited by the Sky people, while the Modoc saw it as the home of Skell, the spirit of the above world. In the modern era, these indigenous beliefs have been joined by claims that Shasta harbors everything from Bigfoot to UFO bases, from interdimensional portals to the last remnants of Lemuria, a supposed lost continent. While easy to dismiss as folklore, the sheer volume of unexplained sightings around Mount Shasta gives even skeptics pause. Hikers report encounters with tall, white-robed figures who vanish when approached. Pilots have documented strange lights and aerial phenomena near the summit, and multiple people have described entering caves that seem to lead impossibly deep into the mountain, containing technology or architecture that shouldn't exist. Geologists point to the mountain's unusual electromagnetic properties and frequent lenticular cloud formations as natural explanations for many of these phenomena. But Mount Shasta reminds us that mountains often serve as bridges between the known and unknown in human consciousness, places where the material and mystical worlds seem to intersect. Moving from the mystical to the meteorological, let's explore one of the most persistent mountain mysteries, the phenomenon of mountain madness. Throughout history, climbers and travelers in high-altitude regions have reported profound psychological experiences, from euphoria and hallucinations to paranoia and the distinct feeling of an unseen presence accompanying them. For centuries, these experiences were attributed to mountain spirits or demons. Modern science offers more prosaic explanations. Oxygen deprivation, isolation, extreme weather conditions, and altitude-induced cerebral edema can all produce altered states of consciousness. But this doesn't fully explain why these experiences often share such similar characteristics across different mountain ranges and cultures. The third man factor, the sensation of an invisible companion, has been reported by mountaineers from the Himalayas to the Andes. Sir Ernest Shackleton famously described this presence during his Antarctic expedition, and countless climbers have recounted similar experiences. Neurologists suggest this might be the brain's response to extreme stress, creating a comforting hallucination of companionship when survival is threatened. Yet the consistency of these reports across time and geography raises the question: could mountains themselves somehow influence human consciousness in ways we don't yet understand? The thin air, increased cosmic radiation, and unique electromagnetic properties of high-altitude environments might affect our brains in ways that science has only begun to explore. From psychological mysteries to geological ones, mountains continue to surprise us with their secrets. In 2013, geologists made a startling discovery beneath the Tian Shan Mountains of China, evidence of an ancient ocean trapped more than 400 miles below the Earth's surface. This massive reservoir, containing more water than all the world's oceans combined, exists not as liquid but as hydroxide minerals formed under extreme pressure. This finding revolutionized our understanding of Earth's water cycle and raised profound questions about mountain formation. The traditional view held that mountains arise solely from tectonic plates colliding, but this discovery suggests that trapped water might play a crucial role in how mountains are born and evolve. As this ancient water slowly makes its way to the surface through volcanic activity, it may explain why mountain springs often contain water with unusual properties or unexpected mineral compositions. Some of history's most enduring mountain mysteries involve disappearances. The mountains of the world seem particularly adept at swallowing travelers without a trace. Take the case of the Yuba County Five young men who vanished in the Sierra Nevada mountains in 1978. Their car was found undamaged on a mountain road, and months later, 4 of their bodies were discovered in locations that made no logical sense. One was found in a forest ranger trailer, having apparently survived for weeks despite nearby food supplies remaining untouched. The 5th man was never found. Or consider the strange case of Bruno Zender, a photographer who disappeared in Antarctica in 1997 during a sudden blizzard. Despite being just 600 feet from his research station, his body was never recovered, as if the mountain had simply absorbed him. These cases highlight a peculiar aspect of mountain disappearances. They often defy logical explanation. People vanish in conditions where bodies should be recoverable, take paths that make no rational sense, or survive for inexplicably long periods before succumbing to the elements. Some researchers have proposed that extreme conditions can induce a state called paradoxical undressing, where hypothermia victims feel suddenly hot and remove their clothing. Others point to the disorienting effects of mountain weather, where visibility can drop to 0 in minutes. But these explanations don't account for all the strange patterns in mountain disappearances, leaving us to wonder what other forces might be at work in these remote environments. Perhaps the most profound mountain mystery isn't any single unexplained phenomenon, but rather the mountain's ability to preserve the past while simultaneously pointing toward our future. As climate change accelerates, mountains are becoming both warning systems and potential saviors. The retreating glaciers that reveal ancient artifacts also expose fresh rock that, through a process called weathering, can actually absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Mountain ecosystems harbor plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth, biological treasures that might contain medical breakthroughs or solutions to agricultural challenges. And the vertical nature of mountains creates multiple climate zones in close proximity, potentially providing refuge for species displaced by warming temperatures. At the same time, Mountains are among the most vulnerable environments to climate change, with warming occurring at higher rates than global averages. The mysteries they've kept for centuries, from ancient ice cores that record Earth's climate history to frozen microbes that have survived for millennia, are at risk of being lost before we can fully understand them. This duality makes mountains not just keepers of past secrets, but harbingers of our future. Natural laboratories where we can witness environmental change in real time and perhaps find solutions hidden in their heights. As we conclude our journey through these mountain mysteries, we're left with more questions than answers, which is perhaps exactly as it should be. Mountains have always represented the boundary between the known and unknown, the accessible and the forbidden. They challenge us not just physically, but intellectually and spiritually. From the unexplained deaths at Dyatlov Pass to the ancient coffins hanging from Chinese cliffs, from the melting time capsules of alpine glaciers to the strange phenomena surrounding Mount Shasta, mountains continue to guard their secrets jealously. Some of these mysteries will eventually yield to scientific inquiry, while others may remain perpetually beyond our understanding. What's certain is that as long as mountains rise from the Earth's crust, they will continue to inspire wonder, fear, and an irresistible urge to explore. They remind us that despite all our technological advances and scientific knowledge, nature still holds mysteries that elude our grasp, and perhaps always will. So the next time you gaze upon a distant peak or hike a mountain trail, remember that you're traversing not just a geological formation, but a repository of secrets, some waiting to be discovered, others perhaps best left undisturbed. For in the end, it may be the mysteries themselves, rather than their solutions, that make mountains so essential to the human experience.